Good morning. Welcome to Vibrant Living with Vayu Yoga. I'm your host, Wendy Hassenpflug, with my co-host.
Shannon Levy-heath.
And this show is about learning how to truly live your life fully and completely. My passion really lies with teaching other people how to make mind-body-spirit connections that lead to healthier patterns and enhance their lives in a positive way. Our program today is about Pilates and yoga, what I kind of call the perfect complementary practice. We're going to talk about a few things, the differences between Pilates and yoga, because a lot of people ask me what's the difference, the benefits of both yoga and Pilates that are both common and unique to their own practice, the complementary aspects of the two practices, and then how to find the right style or class for you. So you don't want to miss any part of today. Before we get started, I've started a little tradition that I like to do now for each show, and it's a way to get you into a more mindful state of being. So if you're driving, please just take note of this and come back to the podcast later. But if you're just listening to us to where somewhere that you can stop what you're doing and give me just 1 minute of your time, then it's well worth it. So stop what you're doing. And if you're standing, just stand up tall with your feet firmly on the ground. If you're sitting, come to the edge of your seat and just place your feet firmly on the ground. Rest your hands in your lap, either palms down or palms up. Sit nice and tall or stand nice and tall, and then close your eyes. When we close our eyes, it helps us take away visual distractions, and the mind doesn't have to think about processing what you're seeing. It can really drop inward, and you can really think about what you're feeling instead. So as you're taking that notice, start to notice your breath. And the funny thing about watching your breath is that as soon as we start watching our breath, we control it in some way, but try not to control it too much. Just watch your breath. Notice if it's coming more from your chest, your ribs, your belly, or a combination of any of those three. And then start to find an equal length inhale and an equal length exhale. So now you are going to control it just a little bit. Maybe inhaling for 1, 2, and exhaling 1, 2. And on your next inhalation, think of the words I am. Exhale, think of the word here. Again, inhaling I am, and exhale here. And then just blink open the eyes and notice how it does really bring you into this present state. You are here. Mentally, physically, emotionally. Today's topic again is Pilates and yoga and what I call the perfect complementary practice. I'd like to start out by explaining the differences between Pilates and yoga a little bit, and then we'll also introduce my guest for today as well. So I have new students ask me all the time, Wendy, what's the main difference between Pilates and yoga? So what I find easiest is to just tell them real quick what it is. But since I've got your ear, hopefully on the radio, I'm going to give you a little bit more in depth about that. So I like to share my personal experience about what I feel the difference between the two is. And for me, it's based on my personal story of what brought me into finding this perfect complementary practice of both yoga and Pilates. I first started Pilates after years of dance, training and teaching and choreographing and dancing and performing. What brought me to Pilates was that I had constant low back pain after every single dance class. And as much as I tried to do my technique correctly in dance, my back always hurt after class. So my soul was happy, my mood was happy, I was feeling good from dancing, but my back was not so happy. So that's what brought me initially to Pilates. And I must admit, the first few Pilates mat classes that I took, I didn't feel much, because to me it was just movement, choreography. Same as taking a dance class. You watch the teacher, you do what they're doing. You might not feel anything, that's okay, you're just doing the dance. And so for me, it was just movements. Until I learned from a teacher that actually started teaching me proper technique. And when you do the movements correctly, now it's starting to feel a little different. And then you're starting to get different benefits from it. So that's what brought me into Pilates in the beginning. And what I found that for me, Pilates started to not only teach me about my core and connecting core to dance, but more importantly, a body awareness, a centering, how to breathe more efficiently, and most importantly for me, how to dance more efficiently without having that pain in my back. So that was Pilates for me. So for me, it was more physical healing and some mind-body connections. But then I was brought into yoga, and the same thing happened with yoga in that the first few classes, I'm like, I am really bored. This is not working for me. Where's the music? Can I can't find a tempo here.
We're not moving enough.
Like, all right, I got the steps, but I'm just, And so it did take quite a few times, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But then I found more of, a style and a yoga teacher that really spoke to me and, again, focused on the techniques and how to do things a little bit differently other than just the steps. And so yoga actually fostered a life-changing formation for me and a transformation for me. And it really came from me teaching my first yoga class and not necessarily taking my first yoga class, which is strange for those of us that teach yoga, that yes, right. I started teaching it before I started practicing it full-time. And the reason I did that was because I was offered a job and I took it. But the reason that I continued to follow, to get trained to be a teacher in yoga was because I found that my students were experiencing these amazing benefits from a yoga practice. Like insomniacs that didn't sleep more than 2 to 3 hours a night were already sleeping 1 to 2 hours more after just 1 week, 2 weeks of doing a regular yoga practice. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? This is interesting. And people that were depressed were not crying anymore. They were more happy. There was just all of these things that students were saying to me that I'm like,
headaches, yeah.
Wow, really? Yeah. This yoga thing's a lot different than Pilates and a lot different than dance. So point being, I find yoga to be a way to overcome physical, mental, and emotional challenges, or not just overcome them, but dive deep into them first and then bring them or encompass them into my life. So what I've learned from these two practices, long story short, is that life is truly about staying true to myself, overcoming obstacles, and continually learning from each experience, finding ways to be inspired. So, we're going to go a little bit more into the origins, too, of yoga and Pilates. We'll talk a little bit more about these before we break here in a sec, and I'll introduce my guest. First of all, yoga's been around for more than 5,000 years. I mean, that's a long time to have some yogis doing stuff. In fact, they don't really know the real date that yoga started, but definitely documented for more than 5,000 years. Pilates started in about the mid-20th century, which is still a pretty long time, but not quite as long as yoga. So that's one of the differences between, Pilates and yoga is the origins and how long they've been around, so therefore how much they've developed. Second, they are both mind-body practices, but yoga adds the spirit side to the equation, and we'll talk about what that means. Yoga can have a spiritual side to its practice, meaning that practitioners learn how to connect their mind, body, and spirit together. So when we come back, I'm going to introduce our guest, Janice Murphy from the nonprofit Spotlight, and she's going to talk about her background or her experiences with Pilates and yoga. And Shannon also, we all are kind of in here talking about how they do complement one another and how they kind of make this perfect practice for our daily lives. So don't go away, because we will be back with that in just a sec. You're listening to Vibrant Living with Vayu Yoga. Did you know that actually Vayu Yoga hosts workshops? I just want to put that out there. Indeed. We host workshops every month, and the workshop for this month is this Saturday. It's Mommy to Be, yoga for the mommy to be, so prenatal yoga. So it's for people of all different stages of pregnancy. You don't have to be a yogi. So for more information, visit us at vayuyoga.com. I'm Wendy Hassenpflug on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back. You're listening to Vibrant Living with Vayu Yoga. I'm Wendy Hassenpflug with my co-host
Shannon Levy-heath
on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today we're talking about yoga and Pilates and what I call the perfect complementary practice. My guest today is Janice Murphy of the nonprofit Spotlight Show. Welcome, Janice.
Hello, ladies. Hello.
In our last segment, I spoke a little bit about the differences between Pilates and yoga. We're going to continue on that, but I'm going to start to bring in Shannon and Janice a little bit more into the picture too, so we can share some of our own experiences with our guests today, or with our listeners today. So first of all, Janice, you practice both Pilates and yoga. Can you explain kind of the mind, body, spirit differences that you have found between the two?
I think for me, it's funny because I started Pilates back in 2007 and have been doing it consistently. I had a shoulder injury, torn rotator cuff, needed to rebuild my shoulder, strengthen it because I wasn't going to have surgery right away. And all through that time I was doing Pilates, my family practitioner, because I was in a very stressful marriage, kept telling me, you need to do yoga, you need to do Tai Chi, something like that to reduce your stress. And I kept thinking, that's for old people. I am so not there. I'm doing my Pilates, and I'm loving my Pilates. So
Not
my mind was not where, my mind and body were saying something else to me, and my spirit was not even in the picture. And lo and behold, I went through divorce, and a couple of years ago, Wendy, you called and said you were going to be doing this new type of yoga, and my Pilates instructor said, I kept saying, I need to get some cardio, I need to do something different, I'm getting a little bored with the Pilates. My body was asking for something else, and my spirit was at a different place because I was going through a divorce, and I really needed to center, focus, and get some calm in my life.
Yes.
So I started doing aerial yoga with Wendy, and I found my new home. And I still do Pilates, and I love it for the, the strength and the lengthening and all the core work, and, but for me, I think yoga is a really good compliment, because sometimes we are so busy and we're running here and there in our lives, and we need to slow it down and look at ourselves and accept some things about ourselves that we, don't normally want to look at. And I think that your practice in particular, the way that you bring in the Sanskrit and the other teachings,
Yogic philosophy.
the yogic philosophies, exactly, that helps me to kind of let go all the worldly stuff, all the day-to-day stuff, and center on life and acceptance of myself and where I am today. You always ask us, what are we bringing to the class today? What are our issues so that we can focus on? And I think that to me has been the best blessing for me about taking on yoga. So I don't know if that answers your question, but for
Absolutely.
me, I know my mind and my body, we were not in concert. And now with yoga, I think I am more at peace with myself and my life. And it is absolutely my happy place. So it's a good marriage to do the two
Absolutely.
practices.
Nice.
But my love right now is definitely yoga, and I do go back and tell my doctor. It took me a lot of years, but thank God you kept pushing that, because there was some reason he was telling me to do that, and I
Gently
found
tapping
it.
you.
He was gently tapping for a long time, and I'm so glad I finally listened.
I'm so glad that doctors are referring, patients to Pilates and yoga nowadays,
I think
too.
that's a paradigm shift.
I do
Certainly,
too.
that
I do
was
too.
not something
Oh, yeah.
that occurred even
Even
in the
5
recent
years ago.
past.
Yeah, truly. My co-host Shannon Levy-heath is a professor of dance at COC, and she also practices Pilates and yoga. Shannon, do you have anything you want to add to what you've experienced in the mind, body, soul?
Indeed, and what I would say is that my vintage is a little older than yours.
I love that.
My experience in dance as a dancer was that we kind of put the movement on, and nobody told us really where the movement initiated. Consequently, despite good intentions, I was injured a lot. It would have been very useful for me to have had Pilates at that time in my life, because it as well as yoga speaks to mindful movement and intentional movement, rather than just flinging ourselves
Throwing
into
yourself out
something,
there.
throwing ourselves, thinking about where the movement initiates in the body and how to do it more efficiently and well. But I'm going to add that in terms of Pilates and yoga, what it does for me spiritually, that component brings a transformational element that transcends what we do, which we do in Pilates, I think.
Yeah, I think you're both touching on the same thing in different ways. So
Yes.
for you
I'm
found...
more layman with my
Well, I really think they're the same thing, though.
Scientifically, I put it in layman's terms. It works for both of us.
But that's
the key.
absolutely
That's the key.
And that's sort of the point too, isn't it?
It is.
And that
any
it
age group,
encompasses
any from any background, any kind of injury or illness, I think, can benefit from both, obviously, Pilates and yoga. But I think as we get older and can't do some of the moves that you young dancer, you know, that you did when you were young. I think that yoga brings a sense of empowerment that you can master
Right.
some things at our age that you couldn't, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It's for me, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have found it at this age.
Freeing and accomplishing.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Another difference that I want to touch on is the structure of the class itself. Depending on the style, the way that it's taught, who teaches it, what their background is of how they've been trained. Yoga draws from thousands of poses, right? So if it's been going on for more than 5,000 years, you can imagine how many poses there are. So, and various different styles. All of these styles still continue to come about. Pilates is a little bit more structured, with less exercises in comparison to yoga to draw from. Janice, how would you describe the difference in class structure of a yoga practice and a Pilates practice that you've experienced?
Well, like you said, there are only so many things with the reformer, with the mat, and with that chair thing. There's only so many things that you can work on and do. I think our range can be pushed a little bit more in yoga. Using the wall, using the straps, using the different apparatuses that we have available to us, whether it's floor class, a wall class, or aerial class, especially the aerial, it allows our bodies to do things with the support that those apparatus provide that you can't do.
There's a freedom.
There's
there.
more
Yes.
freedom, yes, and I think that's the thing that touches me the most, that I get the biggest kick out of, that I can do some things that my 18-year-old can't do in my yoga practice. And now they want to come with me, or they have been coming with me, and they're bringing their friends. And they, you know, it's so cool. The thing that I thought was for old people is now the cool thing to do. Okay, so you know, that just pleases me to no end.
So put that behind you.
Exactly.
That's an old attitude, right?
Shannon, as a practitioner of yoga and Pilates and a teacher of yoga and dance, what would you add to the structure of the class? The differences in the structure of the practices?
Well, again, more structure, I think, in Pilates in terms of being sure that the musculature is balanced on all sides. I know that I've learned that for myself. It's a wonderful thing to be able to incorporate into my dance classes. However, once I began studying yoga and I realized how much of my dance warm-up is yoga derived. So that was kind of exciting to me. And we put it to music and give it a little rhythm and a little bit of beat in jazz class, but it still comes from, many of the stretches come from yoga.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not sure if that's an adequate answer or not, but I find that they all, dance, yoga, and Pilates work very beautifully together.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So I just want to make a quick announcement that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but a little news announcement that there's a fire near the corner of White's Canyon and Delight.
That's right here by the studio.
So
my goodness.
just making our listeners aware of that, especially if you're driving, because it might get a little congested as they put that fire out. So let's go, firefighters, get it. So the next practice, or the next point that I want to make is that the practice itself, a yoga and a Pilates practice, is performed differently. Pilates has more of a fitness structure in my mind, while yoga is more flowing. And yoga includes periods of stillness, which there's not a lot of stillness in Pilates at all. In fact, it's interesting when I bring people that are just Pilates hard, you know, I won't mention any names, but there's somebody that Janice and I know that came from the Pilates world, and we tried to get her into yoga, and she did great for the whole class until Shavasana. She did not like to be still.
Didn't get that at all.
And that's the stillness. Right.
And she's not, maybe she's just not ready to accept that it's, you know, at her age, she needs to take that time for herself.
Difficult to tap into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the gift, that we can take a little bit of time of stillness to ourselves, of quietness. That's our gift after giving, you know, stretching our body, stretching our muscles, stretching ourselves in the exercise. That's our gift. And she wasn't at that point yet. And maybe she'll come back and
Eventually,
she will learn to appreciate that. But
Well, I think it has to do with being a product of a society that encourages us, especially the Los Angeles area, to go, accomplish more, do more, be more, when really what we need to do is stop and reflect.
And take some time for ourselves.
Right.
That's really important as we get
Little
older.
tiny piece of time is a gem.
Huge difference, yeah.
Huge
Makes
difference.
big difference. So just one more point about that, how they're practiced differently, is that both are performed with or without props, but Pilates also uses machines, where yoga really doesn't use machines, at least not yet. There might be one eventually, who knows? But we're going to continue talking about some of those differences so that we really understand the difference between the two and start to see how they complement each other as well when we come back. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about Pilates and yoga. Vayu Yoga, my studio, is located down at 8th and Main Street in Old Town Newhall. You can also find us online at vayuyoga.com. I'm Wendy Hassenpflug on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. You're listening to Vibrant Living with Vayu Yoga. Welcome back. I'm Wendy Hassenpflug with my co-host,
Shannon Levy-heath.
and my guest,
Janice Murphy.
on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We're talking about the perfect complementary practices of Pilates and yoga. We spoke a little bit about the differences in the fact that there are props and or machines in some of them. So Janice and Shannon, I'm going to throw it out to both of you. In your experiences, what do you like about the props and or machines in either practice?
I love at Vayu Yoga, obviously, the use of the silks for aerial yoga, but I love the fact that when you do a aerial class, we do the exact same exercise or movement on the mat, at the wall, in the fabric.
I agree.
And trust me, they are different. On the mat, at the wall, in the fabric. So your body, you're challenging your body in 3 different ways, basically. And you always tell us to pay attention to your body. I never realized that. I know that our bodies aren't symmetrical. One side is always easier, or one side's a little out of balance, and that just surprises me every time. But it really keeps you focused and present in what we're doing and mindful of how we hold ourselves, how our core is. It's really amazing. That was the biggest surprise to me. And some I like using the wall and the straps for some positions and exercises versus the others, but it's nice to have that variety in a class.
I find that the reformers and the props and the wall and the silks, they all help us to facilitate the movements in different ways so that we experience them differently, sometimes more profoundly, depending on what apparatus we're using.
Just what she said. Exactly.
Ditto.
I'm yucky today.
I concur. Do you concur? I concur.
That's what I meant.
Yes,
What she said.
And it goes right along with the idea that they're a complementary practice. The props, the machines, they're all complementary to the practice itself. And Pilates and yoga both are complementary with one another. But the other aspect of that complementaryism, that's not a word.
But you just made it one.
But okay.
It's a Wendyism.
Is how they both complement any lifestyle as well, whether you are a professional athlete, a professional dancer, a non-dancer, a
male
sedentary,
or a female, an older person or a younger person.
Somebody that's not active at
Yeah.
all. I mean,
Yeah.
you find the right style and they
Crosses
are
all
complementary.
demographics,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So the last difference that I want to talk about between Pilates and yoga is breath. And how we use breathing differently, yet sometimes similarly in both Pilates and yoga. Yoga uses breath on a very deep level to not only connect the mind and body, but to change the body's physiology and its energy. Pilates uses breath as a cleansing mechanism and as a component of the core work. You could actually do Pilates breath exercises and work your core, and that's your core work for the day. If it's taught correctly, it's a pretty amazing thing. As a teacher of both Pilates, yoga, and dance, I've actually found that teaching breath work is the most challenging of anything to teach. I can teach you a step, I can teach you a sequence, I can teach you the technical aspects of it, but teaching you how to breathe is probably the most challenging aspect of teaching any of those 3 things. And not only that, on the other side, the flip side, my students say the most challenging part of learning Pilates or yoga or dance
remembering.
is
Breath work.
is the breath work. How do I breathe? Where do I breathe from? How long am I supposed to breathe? I don't have to think about breathing. Why am I thinking about breathing?
And you look at them and you can tell that they're not breathing.
Exactly.
You have to
Right.
remind them that it's useful
Yes.
to have oxygen
Yes.
traveling through your body.
Exactly. It's actually often overlooked because we don't have to think about breathing. We do it, voluntarily. So, but that's part of our mind-body connection, both in Pilates and yoga, is being aware of our breath, because it tells us a lot. It tells us whether we're stressed out. It tells us if we're not breathing correctly, if we listen to it and start to work with it. And it helps us in many ways. So a little bit about the benefits of each. Yoga, there are tons of benefits to both. I'm just going to touch on a few. But yoga has been shown to lower levels of stress hormones, the production of stress hormones. It increases our flexibility. Yoga has been shown to improve our sleep patterns, reduce our blood pressure, and improve our mood. Pilates improves our core strength and core stability, which are similar yet different in their purposes. Pilates improves our posture and balance, our flexibility, and it also helps with the prevention of back pain because of that improved core strength. Janice, what would you say are the most important benefits that you've experienced through either or both practices?
I would definitely say the stress level and my mood with yoga, and the prevention of the back pain with yoga and Pilates. And I think at this age, I've lifted weights, I've done, all the other cardio and all kinds of cardio bar and all these other ones. I think the combination of Pilates and yoga are, for me, the exercise combination that I can use as long as I live. I think
Right.
those two together work for me and my body where I'm at today, and I can see being able to do those practices as long as I live.
And safely,
And safely, exactly.
without injuring your body.
Without-
In fact, strengthening it against injury.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shannon, how about you?
Well, I think with Pilates, you'll remember that when we first started, I had an injury where I nicked a corner of my kneecap off.
Oh, yikes.
And my knee wasn't tracking right, and it would sway to the inside. And so it allowed me to bring balance to the musculature of my legs on all four sides, and the core work has been valuable. And then in terms of yoga, it's just, it's transformational. It's allowed me to connect deeply to my spirit. Certainly, again, as you said, improvement of mood and spirit. So
Awesome benefits for both of you. A quick break again from our discussion, just to announce real quick that there is a fire in Canyon Country on Delight Street, and a resident boat has caught on fire in their driveway. The LA County Fire is reporting that one individual is critically burnt. So just being aware that that is happening right here and now. There's some other benefits that I'd like to touch upon in both Pilates and yoga that we really don't, they're not like put out there if you were to Google benefits of yoga and Pilates. But I've noticed that I teach this because I notice it through my students. Both practices can be carried off the mat. What I mean by that is I teach my students to not only learn things like paying attention to how you sit, stand, and walk when you're in your practice, but taking that off of your mat and into your life. So instead of sitting in a slouched way or leaning back into your chair, one of my clients actually had him put his chair. I just saw one of our interns in here sit up nice and tall as I said that.
I mean, we all kind of
Right, we all sat up taller.
yes, off the mat.
But I actually had a client take their chair in their car and put it to a 90-degree angle instead of that leaning back, comfortable, because what it's doing is it's bringing your shoulders forward and your head forward to drive. And if you're driving for a long time, like my husband in the film industry, he drives all day, that's not going to make a happy back. Body awareness in all activities is another thing that both Pilates and yoga teach us. And Janice, can you think of some Pilates concepts that actually carry over into your yoga practice? So if we think about things that you've learned and concepts that you've learned in Pilates that you remind yourself or I remind you of when we come into our yoga practice.
The only thing I know you remind me of constantly is, and it is because I've had a shoulder injury, to keep my shoulders out of my ears. And I think just the fact that in Pilates we work on balance, both sides being balanced, doing the same exercise equally on both sides. I think that for me is one of the big ones.
The frame.
Yes, exactly.
And maintaining that.
And I always use core in everything that I teach. I always give information on how to engage the core, how to make a more stable core, or how to strengthen the core and let your core support your body. Learning
your belly to the pit of your
yes, the pit of your belly up to your heart. They crack up when I say that.
Just
yes,
so you
it's
know,
true.
I drive with my seat at 90 degrees, and when I get into my husband's car, I tip backwards because he's got his seat so far back.
Yeah, tell him.
We're working on it.
Both Pilates and yoga also teach you how to move more efficiently, and so you really learn like we've been talking about, how you are moving that is imbalanced or incorrect, and you start to work towards balance and proper posture. And when you find those two things, you move more effectively. So everything you do is more more efficient rather, which means you don't have to put as much effort into what you're doing. So things become easier because you're not using as much energy to do them. So also, you're less prone to injuries. You recover quickly if you do injure yourself. They're both complementary to all lifestyles, whether you are sedentary or active. You just have to find the right style of yoga and Pilates for your lifestyle. So we're going to talk about that when we come back in this next segment, how to find the right style for you and your lifestyle, for your mind and your body, not just the mind, because the ego is attached to that mind. We are located at VayuYoga.com on the net and at the corner of 8th and Main on Main Street, Old Town. Our studio is called Vayu Yoga, and we're having a workshop prenatal workshop for this weekend. So visit us, talk to us about it, because we'd love to teach you how to bring yoga into your pregnancy. We are going out for a break. I'm Wendy Hassenpflug on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back. You're listening to Vibrant Living with Vayu Yoga. I'm Wendy Hassenpflug with my co-host,
Shannon Levy-heath.
and my guest,
Janice Murphy.
on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today we've been talking about Pilates and yoga as the perfect complementary practices. And before we go back into that, I'd just like to make a quick announcement that the fire is out. The fire that was at the corner of White's Canyon and Delight is out. First of all, I encourage everyone to start where they are when we look at how to choose the right style of Pilates and yoga. So starting where you are, and let the practice evolve, unfold, and transform you. Whether it's Pilates or yoga, it all starts with your willingness to be present in every single moment, in this moment here and now. So when Janice said earlier, she wasn't ready for yoga for a long time. And, that's not where she was at that point, right? And then she started when she was ready. She started where she was with her body and mind at that point and brought it, into the equation. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the styles that you both like and why. So if you were to choose your favorite style of Pilates, and let me just say that there's a few styles. So there's classic, there's contemporary, there's Windsor, there's Stott. Depending on the teacher, they all taught differently when you've taken Pilates before. Or you could look at the style of mat versus equipment. Which would be your favorite and why, Janice?
I think equipment because I came from a background of lifting weights and worked with a trainer when I tore my rotator cuff, and I felt I needed to strengthen. So having the weight bearing kind of exercise background, I thought that's what I needed at the time. I like the reformer. I like the what do they call the box? I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about, the chair.
Just the chair.
The
Pilates chair. Mm-hmm.
I love those kinds of exercises at that time. But my absolute favorite, and you know what I'm going to say, my absolute favorite is the yoga practice, the aerial or suspended asana. And I can, because I'm getting older and having trouble with my hand strength, a little bit of arthritis, I can work my hand grips. I can still work on my core, my balance. We all know we need, as we get older, we need to work on our balance. And I took a fall, which is how I tore my rotator cuff, fell down some stairs. So right now, for me, where I'm at today, I can still get the challenge. We can do some crazy, unique, fun things. So every practice, every class can be a little bit different. But that right now is that's my passion.
How about you, Shannon?
Well, I like the mat Pilates, but I'm enjoying the challenge of the reformer because I think because it's weight bearing, more weight bearing, and the use of the straps and whatnot encourages me to work a little harder. And so I kind of enjoy it when I feel a little sore the next day, and I did from last Friday. I told her on Saturday. I like Iyengar for its emphasis on placement. Shivananda makes a lot of sense to me in terms of sequencing and advancing. But I'm going to say again, I'm going to repeat what Janet says. I am in love with Vayu Yoga, the aerial yoga, and yoga wall as well. Yes. I like Wendy's signature, the Vayu Pure.
Yes.
A lot of fun.
Great class.
Awesome. And I didn't even ask you guys to say that.
No,
I guess I got to buy you guys lunch now. But there is a difference. And that's why I opened my own studio, because I do love all that variety as well. My question is, what's preventing people from trying a yoga or a Pilates class? Because studies show now that 44% of Americans want to try yoga. That's a new study that just came out. So if that's the fact, then in my experience, you try one and it wasn't the right one for you, and then you don't do it anymore. You don't try another one. So my biggest advice is, do you just go to one dentist and then never go back to a dentist for the rest of your life? No, you go try a new one.
Right.
So the same thing needs to happen, because Pilates and yoga are not just forms of exercise. They are forms of enhancing your well-being and your health. And you will be healthier in many ways. So, just like finding a dentist, you want to find the right style and the right teacher and the right place. There are different settings. You can take Pilates or yoga at the gym, at the Y, or at private studios. They are very different. The way that the setting itself, the environment, the teachers, the class is very different. So finding the one that works best for you. Realizing that most yoga classes are taught differently every time you go in, and Pilates classes tend to be more predictable after a little bit while. And some people with a type A personality might like to have that routine, right? All different styles and all different ways of teaching it. Vayu Yoga, my studio, is non-dogmatic, meaning that we don't teach just one way in any of our teachings. Our teachers have diverse backgrounds. We teach centering, breath work, warm-up, well-rounded sequences, cool-downs, and shavasana. So there's a meditative, there's a stillness, there's a lot of activity as well. It's everybody's got that, but the way we do it are different depending on the class and the teacher. We're able to customize each of our practices that we teach because we have such small class sizes. We only have between 1 and 8 people in each of our trainings, so you get a lot of individualized attention. And we do incorporate props and aromatherapy, and everyone knows everyone else. It's like it's a family, it's a community at Vayu Yoga.
It's very joyful.
Yes, it is. We've coined
laugh.
the term. It's our happy place.
It is our happy place.
I love that. Again, I didn't tell them to say that. They've created that all on their own, and you can see it. It's wonderful to see that among everybody.
People miss each other when you don't show up to class, and a class is much more fun when you know each other. So I love Wendy always starts the class by going around and asking to say our name and she always has some crazy
Something
what's
about
your
yourself.
favorite alcoholic drink
or something. Right.
On a Saturday morning after we've been out Friday night.
Right.
And I'll get a text from somebody, missed you at class tonight, or are you okay? And, so it truly is a lovely community.
And that adds to the spirit, the mood enhancing. It makes you go out in your day feeling a little higher, a little better,
a little taller.
Yes.
Yeah.
A part of something.
Yeah.
Finally, my best advice is to listen to how your body feels in your practice. And most importantly, after you practice, listen to the after effects. You should be able to do yoga and or Pilates every day. So like one yoga practice every other day, one Pilates practice on each of the other days. Sometimes you could even do a yoga and a Pilates practice on the same day, but it really just depends on the style that you're taking and what your body is like. But your body will tell you if you listen to it. I think too often nowadays we don't listen to our bodies. We over-push ourselves because we are such a push, get stuff done driven society that
Achievement oriented.
Yeah, we live our lives the same way that we bring onto our mats, and we need to teach ourselves on our mats what the healthier way of living is, and then start to do the opposite of that, live the way on our mats that we want to live in our life, and start to bring that into the way that we do live our lives. So listening to your bodies, if you're sore, and you can't move enough to raise your arms over your head to put a shirt on that morning, that's your body telling you work just a bit too hard. And unless you are working on hypertrophy, which means building muscle, then you don't need to be that sore and work that hard for your Pilates or your yoga practice. I think that's one thing that people misunderstand too, is they're like, I didn't even feel anything. That didn't work for me. I wasn't sweating. Oh, I don't know about this. You don't have to sweat. You don't have to feel like you're working hard to still work hard. Not to say that there aren't times that you will sweat or work hard and feel like, Wendy, are we done with this yet? But you need that variety. Truly, and you need to listen to your body. Do you have any last words you'd like to share with people that are trying to find the right style?
You know what? There are, like you said, there are new yoga studios coming up all over town, especially in this town. There's like the difference between a large gym and a small boutique. You need to know yourself and what you're comfortable with. But I say in your lifetime, I just would suggest everybody go to Vayu Yoga. And Wendy didn't ask me to say this, but this is me personally. You will find out things about yourself. And I used to tell my kids, once in your life, do something that challenges yourself. Do something that's out of your normal routine, and you will find out about yourself and the strength within you. And Vayu Yoga, the aerial classes particularly, will do that for you.
Vayu Yoga provides a big range of specialty instruction, from floor-based to aerial-based to wall-based to the Pilates reformer. And again, we do offer both Pilates and yoga, and that was our main focus today, for you to see that they do complement one another very well. And so venturing out to both of them and seeing how they do complement one another. This weekend, again, is our workshop for August. It's a Yoga for the Mommy to Be this Saturday, August 16th from 1 to 3. We are located at the corner of 8th and Main Street in Old Town Newhall, and you can visit us on the web at Vayu Yoga, VAYU Yoga.com. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. Tune in next Tuesday from 11 to 12. You've been listening to Vibrant Living with Vayu Yoga. I want to thank my guest once again for taking time out of her day. Janice, thank you.
You're welcome.
And my
It was a
co-host for
pleasure.
taking her time out of her day. Thank you so much.
You bet.